But if you haven't seen a more general demo, I put a couple things in the chat. The first one is a recording of my July demo to the HDAA data governance SIG, and that's just a Zoom link, so you can click that, grab it, save it off, favorite it, whatever, and that'll walk through kind of the background of the project, and then go through a more general purpose demo showing you know, the Epic integration, how the catalog combines everything, all the cool stuff, usage tracking. And then I also started kind of a blank post on the HITA forum. And if you guys aren't familiar with HITA, I really encourage everybody on here to go out and join. It's a non-vendor affiliated industry group for healthcare data analytics professionals. It's free to join if you have a healthcare provider email address. They've got a forum. It's a little bit, I'm big on the Epic user web, but you know, it's nice to have another place to go where you don't necessarily have your vendor watching and, you know, potentially censoring everything you say at all times. So I'd encourage everybody from this group to go out and check it out. I'm going to be posting, I think I'll eventually, wherever we figure out to post the link to this recording, I'll post that here in that thread. You know, periodic updates, other info, and I think it's just going to be a great place to facilitate discussion and ask and answer questions, and really, which is the point of this open source project, connect each other, you know, independent of Riverside. So, you know, as other organizations are using Atlas and taking advantage of the tool and building onto it, they can facilitate kind of that open source community. So those are my two disclaimers, my two caveats. But without further ado, I'm going to toss it to Christopher Pickering, who is going to walk you through from scratch standing up Atlas. Oh, one more caveat: we're not going to cover. We only have an hour, so we're not going to cover every little thing. We're going to cover the basics, getting your basically SSRS reports and all of your Epic native reports into the catalog. There's other ETL built for Power BI, for Tableau, some more sophisticated stuff for pulling in your LDAP user information. So we're not going to go in full detail. Chris has done a great job and is continuing to work on putting videos up on the Atlas BI website that get into those individual components. So this is kind of an overview guide, and you know, the other pieces we're going to supplement with other videos. Also, if you got questions, again, check out the HITA forum post. I think it's going to be a great place to kind of have that discussion happen. So I'm done talking. We both wore plaid today. That wasn't planned. I don't know what it is about Fridays in the fall, but I'm going to hand it over to my plaid brother, Christopher Pickering, and he'll take it from there.
Hey, I'm Christopher. I'm just going to turn my camera off and start sharing my screen here. There we go. So first, I guess we should just talk about a little bit of what requirements there are for us to get it running. So for our hospital, our database server, we have 80 gigabytes of RAM, and on that server, our Atlas database is taking 32 gigabytes, and our staging database is taking 17 gigabytes. It's a shared server for us, so we have many other databases on there. It's got 8 cores. So our web server, we are running an 8-core web server with 16 gigabytes of RAM. The actual size of the Atlas website is less than a gigabyte. And there's a couple of dependencies we'll be using as well. We have Git to clone the code off of GitHub. We use Python for several of the ETLs, and on Windows with Python we need Windows build tools. We're using Node, Java, SQL Server ODBC, a SQL database. So on this call we're using SQL Express, which has local DB. We'll be using Visual Studio Code to run the website, and Visual Studio 2019 with SQL Server Integration Services to run the ETL. So we'll get started with the website first. So I've just jumped over to GitHub, You can look us up on there, Atlas BI library. We'll copy the clone URL for the repository. And I'm going to switch over to Visual Studio Code. On the main screen, I'll click the clone git repository button, paste in the URL we copied. We'll pick a folder on the computer to save it to. Now Visual Studio Code's going to download everything we need from GitHub. And we can go ahead and click open. Now, if you were to scroll down on GitHub, you would see there's some instructions for how to get started. So the first thing we'll do is create a settings file. So there's two settings files in here already. If you expand the web folder, there's a app settings development and an app settings by itself. So the settings are split between production settings and development settings. So when we're running on our computer, we're in the development mode. So I'll create a new file in here for custom development settings.
And that file name, that's convention based. So it's important that that matches exactly what you typed in there.
Right, yep. And so what we add to this file will override what is in the main app settings file. So if you need to change a setting that is in this file, you would copy the particular setting you want to tweak into your custom file. So for this demo, the only thing we'll be tweaking is the database. I'm just going to copy my database connection string into there. So you can see I'm using local DB. That's coming with SQL Express. And I've called the database Atlas. And I'm using trusted connection on this computer.
And we're using local DB because of the demo, but typically you would probably want to have a dev instance or production instance of SQL Server on another server that you can point to. So for our production implementation, we're pointing to our actual production SQL Server we're using for the back end of the web app.
All right, next we'll open a terminal. Here it's PowerShell. So there's 3 commands we would run to get the website turned on. The first one is npm install. This will install the node dependencies that are used to build the static side of the website.
And this is assuming that you've already installed Node on the workstation.
Yeah.
What version of Node are you guys using? 16?
It works with the last 2, 16 or 18. So it takes about a minute or 2 to install everything. When it's finished installing the node dependencies, it will also install a .NET tool that is used for the database migrations. So I guess I didn't say it before, but you also need to have .NET installed. And we are working with .NET 6. All right, so it's installed everything, and you could see it flashed really quickly at the end. It installed the .NET tool for doing database migrations. So the next step is to actually have the database created, the database tables, and seed them. And that's done using the .NET EF migrations. And we can do npm run db update. This is now going to build the .NET side of the website and then create the database for us. It's using the database that you specified in the connection string there. It also takes a minute or so for the .NET to build. All right, we see a lot of white, green, and gray flashing on the screen while the tables are being created. All right, so now the database is set up. So if you were to go back into your SSMS here, refresh your database list, you would see an Atlas database with a lot of tables in there. So next we'll turn the website on and see how it looks. We do that with npm start. So this is going to actually do the compiling of the front end side of the website and then redo the .NET build and turn it on. At the end, it'll open up a browser for you on your computer with the dev URL in it. I'm on a server right now and it opens Internet Explorer as the default. I'm just going to switch to Google Chrome. So there we go. The website's turned on. It's pretty much empty right now. The only thing existing will be my user profile, and I'm called a guest. You can see it says hi guest because we haven't run any ETL to load in the user information. But right now it's a functioning website. So the next step is to run the ETLs to get data into the database. So we'll start with running the SSIS ETLs, and those are found on the Epic report repository. So I'll just go download that. All right, in the Epic report repository, you can search for Atlas. I got the Epic filter. We'll see the Atlas BI library ETL.
So yeah, Epic's default filter on the search here doesn't include customer created tools.
So at the bottom, they've linked in a zip file. We'll download that. And I'll just drag that over into our Atlas tools folder.
Webinar.
So we have a couple things in here that are specific to Epic. For example, how to embed Atlas in hyperspace. We'll start out though with the Atlas staging creation script. This is the script we use to create the database. I'm just going to copy that into SSMS and run it. All right, so we should have the Atlas staging database show up. Now I'll open the ETL Visual Studio package. And again, this is in Visual Studio 2019 with the SQL Server integration services. The first thing I'm going to do in here is turn off the SSIS online, make it work offline. And I'm doing that just to speed up the process as we've put dummy database connections in all of these. And when you open a SSIS package, it tries to to validate your connections. There's quite a few ETLs in here. The order of them is important for 3 of them. The setup ETL should be run first. The setup ETL creates all the tables that are used that are shared between the other ETLs. And then the post-processing is last. That's a blank ETL. There's nothing in here. This is for you to do custom things in if you want to tweak things in the Atlas database after you've run the other ETLs. Then the merge should be second to last. And the merge ETL takes everything that's been staged in the staging database and puts it into the Atlas database. So right now on the phone, we're going to run the setup one. We're going to run the Clarity. And we'll do an SSRS. And merge ETL. So you can see there's 2 SSRS ones in there. If you have multiple SSRS servers, you can duplicate it as many times as you need to. And the same with the other ETLs. They can be run for different setups. All right, so I'm just going to put them in the order where we will run them. So we'll do setup, Clarity, SSRS, and then merge. So first we'll go into the parameters tab. There's 3 parameters used. The first 2 are the database names. So we have our Atlas database and our staging database. If you were to use different database names, then you would change it, but we went with the default. And then org name would be your organization's Active Directory name. So in my case, Riverside Health. And I'll just change that in all 4 of the ETLs.
So just to be clear, for the database names, unless you're modifying the creation scripts, those are fine as is. Those don't need to be modified.
Yep. All right, then the second thing we'll set is the database connections. So if you go back to the control flow tab, at the bottom, you'll see a connection manager. And also we use the default name, so we're just going to change the server name to be the database server we used. So in our case, we're using local DB, so I'll put that in as my server name. The Atlas staging database, we can test. Okay. The Clarity ETL. Atlas staging. Success. All right, this is our Clarity server. So wherever your Clarity report is. Our Clarity server. The last 4 connection managers in the Clarity ETL are for flat files that are exported out of Epic through their text tool and batch jobs. There are 4 sets of information that aren't available in Clarity yet. So we're not going to do those right now. I'm just going to disable that step. And if you were to go back into the ETL file folder where you downloaded everything, there's instructions on how to set that up. All right, then the SSRS. Our staging database. And our SSRS database. So this is the database where my report server database is at. Success. And finally, we'll update the connection in the merge ETL. So our Atlas one, our staging, and the last connection is using these 2 steps that are disabled. So we'll skip over that one for now. All right, so we can start running them. The first one, the setup. ETL will create tables that are shared between these two. We'll run that. All right. Then we'll move on to the Clarity. So in the rest of the ETLs, the first step is always creating tables that are used in the ETL. So every time the ETL runs, it creates new tables and gets rid of the old tables. So the very first time you run the ETL, you should run the create table steps individually, or the SSIS package validation will fail for the rest. The next time you run the ETL, you can just run the whole package properly. So I'll run these three to create the Clarity staging tables or Clarity raw tables. All right, we could turn the SSIS to work back online if we wanted to. And we have a known issue, I guess, with SSIS. There's a step in here, Clarity LTP step we have to open and close every time we open ETL. So I just opened it and closed it. All right, now we ran the three create table steps. Now we can launch the full ETL here. Sometimes if you're a Visual Studio user, I guess you know it freezes up and you have to relaunch it. Sometimes it's just busy for a couple of seconds and then it loosens back up.
Yeah, so something to point out also is Christopher mentioned he's using Visual Studio 2019. So you might have noticed that that's not the current version of Visual Studio. I think 22 is the latest, but 22 still does not have support for integration services. It's supposed to be coming at some point soon. But for right now, 2019 is the most recent version that you can build, run, and manage integration services packages. So that's why we're on 19.
Will it work on older versions like 2016 or 17?
It works on 17 for sure. I haven't tried 2016.
It was developed on 17.
We're running 16, so.
Let us know.
Yeah, there's a good chance it'll work.
Yeah, the differences aren't vast.
So my Visual Studio died. Just gonna open it back up. And I'm gonna start back with the setup one. Visual Studio's white screen of death.
Yeah, and this is a good tip if you do run into any sort of crashes with the ETL. Just always go back to setup, just rerun setup, and that'll rebuild the staging database.
All right, so we run the setup. The Visual Studio crashes. Sometimes it It leaves little things in the background. Remember what that's called, Dan? SSIS something.
So now everybody knows this isn't a fake demo. Yeah, I think you just killed all of the SSIS processes.
Yeah, storage map. There it goes. All right, setup. Switch back to Clarity. And we'll launch it. Second try should be golden. The CTL is the longest of them all, just because of the size of the data that's coming out of Clarity. It's over, for us, we're getting over 100,000 items.
Yeah, jump over the data flow
Sorry.
tab, and then you can kind of see the scope of what it's pulling from Clarity.
So we have HRXs, FDS, HDRs, IDN, IDKs. Then we have the hierarchy of them, IDPs, FDMs, LPPs, PAFs, tags, slice to dice recessions, which is an HRX. And there's also users and user groups somewhere in here, buried. Just about done. I think we've got 40-something thousand LPPs. All right, the last step is getting the report groups. All right, so everything completed in the Clarity. We'll switch over to the SSRS one. And I'll run the create table step individually first. And again, the reason we do that is because the last three steps are using the tables created in the first step, and SSIS validation will fail if the tables don't exist. So we always run the first step by hand, and now any other time we run the ETL, we will run the full package, either by hitting the start button, or if you schedule it as a SQL Server agent job, just running the full thing.
Yep, I mentioned that in the chat. So this is running for us. Are we at 4 times a day? We're running this on our,
6, I think.
Is it
I think
6?
6 now. I think so. Because we're doing some real-time exports from Clarity. I can't remember which tables those are. All right, so our SSRS one completed. Stop. And finally, we'll do the merge, which will send everything from the staging database into the Atlas database. And this one, there's no table creation happening, so we'll just start it and watch it go. All right, all completed. So if we were to head back to our database, now we would see some information in there. In the Atlas tables, the tables in the DBO schema are generally the ones that the ETL is updating. If we were to select from report object, we would see all of our reports in there. If we went to the website.
Yeah, we're done now, right? Let's go to the website.
We could type in a URL for report ID 1, for example. So there's my report number 1. Got the system description and some details. This is LPP, so it's got some M code queries. But
if you try to search,
yeah, we won't get anything because we still haven't turned search on. So then the next ETL we'll run is the search ETL for Solr. So we head back to GitHub. In the Atlas BI, it's the Solr search ETL. We're going to follow the same process we did with the website. We'll get the clone URL. I'm going to open a new Visual Studio code window because we want to leave the website running when we start the search. I'm going to do clone git repository. Pick my folder where to save everything. I'm going to go open it up. So we look at the instructions here. Now we need the Java JRE installed. We have to make sure the Java home environment variable is set to where you install Java. So next we can go and start Solr. So if we go back to the Atlas Visual Studio Code, you'll see there's a folder in here called Solr. That's where the search is at. So I'm going to open a new terminal and change directories into that. And then we can run the command to start Solr. So we scroll back just a little bit, you can see it's bin Solr start. So /bin Solr start. And that will turn it on. So this is just for development. On your actual web server, you would run Solr as a service. And on the Atlas BI documentation website, it says how to set it up as a service. So we're using Python here. This one's using Poetry as the package manager. You could just use Python pip install. You look in the dependencies section here just for packages needed. So I'm going to open a terminal and I'm just going to run Poetry install to install those. Next, we will create a settings file called .env. We can just copy the recommendation. A new file, .env. So the one thing we'll want to change is our database connection. I've already installed ODBC driver on this computer, so we'll update the connection string here to be the same one I used for Atlas. So it's got my local DB, and then Atlas has the database. So next there's like 8 different ETLs we can run. The delete ETL resets Solr. It takes everything out of it, and we run that 1 time per day. The rest of the ETLs in here, so for the Atlas collections, initiatives, groups, terms, lookups, users, and reports, we are running every hour during the day, and we just do that to keep any changes to the documentation up to date in the search results. So if I document a report and somebody searches for what I've documented, they can find that quickly. So I'll run all of these now. I'm just going to copy the whole batch. and paste them in here. So the content is loaded into Solr in batches of 500. So we'll see it going as it loads everything in. So we haven't used Atlas yet on this computer, so there's no collections, no initiatives, and no terms. But it just went through groups and users, and it looks like it's starting on reports now. So we have like 140,000, I think, we got with the ETL. So once those all load in, then we'll go back to the website and try searching.
And if that sounds like more reports than you could possibly imagine, you know, even in a huge Epic setup, that's because a report is what we call a report object. So we're actually taking things like radar dashboards and splitting them out into the different components that roll up to form that dashboard. So you're going to have radar dashboards are report objects, then components are report objects. And do we still load resources? I think we load resources and hide them. So those are report objects.
We do, yeah.
Metrics, reporting workbench reports, also all of the reporting workbench columns, and the extensions that can power those columns. And so when you, especially with the Epic stuff, when you add all of that together, plus all your SSRS library, your slicer dicer models and sessions, your Tableau library. In Tableau, it splits it out into, I think it's worksheets and workbooks. So each tab on a Tableau workbook is its own separate report object as well. And some of the visibility of this stuff can be tweaked within the app settings. So you don't just automatically go into Atlas and you have 140,000 different things available in search. It's pared down to the stuff that's most relevant to the end user, both based on content type and also based on usage and even manually hiding information in the database.
Yep. So the ETL we ran just now was the Solr Search Loader, and then a couple of the SSIS ones. But there's also an ETL you could do for LDAP to get your user information from Active Directory. That will get like people's email addresses, phone numbers, their department, and then any email groups that they're a part of. And it's nice to get that information because SSRS reports use those groups for subscriptions, and then you can map all of that. We also have ETL for Crystal reports, and this ETL will take a Crystal RPT file and extract the SQL from it, so you can search for that SQL in Atlas. There's the Tableau one Dan mentioned, and this one goes into the Tableau Postgres database and also parses the XML file for a Tableau report and extracts the SQL. The Power BI, and then the Solr one. So scheduling those, we run the SSIS ones on our SQL server as an agent job. And we are using another tool called Atlas Hub to run the others, which are Python based. But you could run them all as an agent job. You could put them all in order. Install these Python ETLs on your server and then run them all as agent jobs. Or you could do it as a batch job or use Atlas Hub like we do. I can show you quickly what the scheduled job looks like. We have our Atlas ETL job. So you can see the steps. We have our setup one first, and then merge and post-processing at the end. And the order of the others in between is not important. All right, so I'll hop back and see if it's finished. Getting close, 150,000.
And then for those of you who joined late, I'm just going to repost this one more time in the chat. If you need more of an introduction to the catalog, kind of background information and a demo of the features, my HITA presentation from July is linked in the chat. And then also I created a kind of placeholder post on the HITA forum for follow-up questions and discussions. I'll be posting some of the links that we discussed here. We got to figure out the best way to post this video, but once we have that determined, then I'll post that to the forum. And I've got the emails of everybody who accepted the invite, even if it was forwarded to you. So I'll send that stuff out with follow-up to the email as well.
Cool. So we have the search results all loaded in there. I'll go back into Atlas and we could try searching for something. You see my name is showing up here now. We could search for COVID. Get some COVID reports. I could star them. I'll show up on my favorites. Switch to a filter for SSRs, for example. Reports should all be running. If I go back to the home page, you'll see my favorites are showing up there now. That's the basics of starting up Atlas, getting your reports loaded and turning on search. And we went through it really fast and didn't have very many problems. Sometimes problems come up when you're doing it for the first time, installing the dependencies. There's more documentation is available on our atlas.bi website.
So I have a potential problem question. On the Clarity ETL, are there any pieces, data flows in the package that are using Clarity tables that other Epic customers may not have in their implementation?
Yeah, it's possible that you may not have a table enabled. And when that happens, you can either disable the step if you don't want that information, or you can have your ETL admin enable the table in Clarity, enable the export to Clarity.
Because yeah, I know that's a common error that you see pop up when other folks are standing this up.
And the other error that we've seen is with data type, so lengths of strings. So in these ETL steps, we've set the length of everything that's being imported. So it's possible that you're importing a string length that's way bigger than we use, and you may have to change the size in here, one of these. So if that happens, you can let us know and we'll increase it in the main ETL as well.
And those will typically show up as a truncation error.
Yeah, they call it a prime output.
Oh yeah, that's the prime output, legendary prime output.
Yeah. It's the one
I
that
would
causes
love ideas
nightmares.
to streamline the process. Absolutely, Jeff. Yeah, that's, as I've mentioned, the idea is to be a collaborative process. Lots of big brains out there in the healthcare analytics and Epic world, and
we just reply to this email, to this meeting invite with our ideas, or how do you want us to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Or if you want to hop on the HITA forum, I think that's a nice place to have something that folks can go back to and refer to.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I think we did 4 run-throughs and they all went over an hour. So we must have figured something out. We got a few minutes left here if anyone else has questions. So I see a question on VS Code. And yes, that's the recommended way to do it. VS Code's just very easy to pull down the project from Git to deploy it. But yeah, actually originally we originally developed the entire platform on Visual Studio. I don't know if Chris, if you have any other comments related to the VS Code requirement.
Yeah, the reason we don't use Visual Studio is because Visual Studio was not taking .NET 6. So Microsoft had all their dependencies messed up. So Visual Studio 2022 did not do SQL service integration, and I think it was 2019 did not do .NET 6. Maybe they fixed that by now, but we just gave up on it and switched to Visual Studio Code. Because with the switch to Visual Studio Code, you could also use a different text editor like Sublime or something else, and you're just using the terminal to run the website now. You're not relying on a system to run the website for you. I see Cecil's comment. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good tip. So have we rolled that back into the production ETL?
No. Let's make a note of it.
And Cecil's from UC Health in Colorado, by the way. They've been live over a year now. They were kind enough to be a guinea pig.
We love it.
Hey Dan, Ed Wasserman from Children's Colorado. I didn't see the comment that you're referring to in the chat. I don't know if that was just
Oh,
you.
yeah. Well, I can. Let me throw it out again. So, because Joe mentioned that if you join late, you don't see old comments in GoToMeeting. So I've been spamming my own chat with these comments. So one more time, here's a link to my HITA presentation from July, which is a nice, if you want to kind of share an overview of the application, it's a nice kind of general audience presentation for that data governance SIG. And then for the discussion forum post, and I want to really encourage everybody on here, if you're not part of HITA, it's free. They do a great conference every year. They have like a forum that's a non-vendor specific alternative to something like the Epic User Web. It's not very pretty, but it's usable. And if you're nostalgic for like 2009 era internet, like I am, it's a nice throwback. But it's very functional, and I think the thing that is sometimes missing is engagement. So it's we're gonna have like cross-vendor conversation. It's really nice. You can talk to Cerner customers. So this is the link that I just posted again to that forum. And if you haven't, oh, I double posted. Hang on, I posted the link to the video twice. But all you need is a healthcare provider email address, and they'll approve your membership application, and it's free. And then you can go out there and get chatting.
Are you going to be at the conference this year?
I am planning to. Yeah, I will be virtual. Sorry, I should say that. Okay. So, I was talking about this with some HITA folks actually, and unfortunately, I think this is the case for a number of organizations. We're not having a great year financially, and so since there's a virtual option on that conference, my boss was immediately do virtual. Let's save a little money. So I will be attending virtually, but not in person, unfortunately.
I'll be there presenting on data virtualization. Sure, to plug my own presentation, but yeah, I'm plugging my own presentation on data virtualization.
I definitely prefer to spend a few days in Miami in November than in Illinois. least the trees are still changing color right outside my window, so that's nice. Oh, sure. Yeah, Chris, you want to take that one on pull requests from Levi?
Yeah. Yeah,
and you were our first, Levi, by the way. Like we like you. We were very excited to see that.
Yeah, feel free to do PRs on GitHub if you find issues or things that could be improved. We use pre-commit tool to do commit messages to keep track of what's changing. So if you do npm run commit instead of just git commit, then it'll ask you a couple of questions about what you're changing, if it affects anything, and then that'll automatically go into our change log. If you don't do that and just do git commit, it's fine. We'll tweak it before it goes into a release. But yeah, we appreciate the PRs for sure.
All right. Well, if that's it for the questions in the moment, if you have more questions, you got my email address, hit a forum, check it out. We'll go ahead and wrap up for the day. Thank you very much for everybody for joining us and checking out our project. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Christopher. We really, at Children's, we're really looking forward to getting involved with this and contributing to the project as well.
Awesome. That's really cool to hear.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.